All right, good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm going to start with a question. We don't have mic in the audience, so you just have to shout out your answer. What's your image of Bhutan? Pretty. Amazing. Peaceful. Happy. Temples. That's a good one. Spicy. Indeed, yes. So today we have an excellent group of panelists that will be joining us today. So please let me invite our panelists to come up on stage. So we have our panelists coming from Bhutan and Singapore. You can see that on the order. So let me introduce our panelists first. So on my left side, and which is to your right, we have Jigme Tenzing, who is the Secretary of the Government Technology Agency in Bhutan. We have Aya Miyaguchi, who is the President of Ethereum Foundation. We have Jonathan Ta, who is the Chief International Affairs for the Gelephu Mindfulness City Authority, and he's also His Majesty's Special Envoy to India for GMC. We have Galraz, who is our visiting researcher and a Bhutan liaison at Chiba Tech, and also working for GMCA. And last but not least, we have Ujjwal Dahal, who is the CEO of Druk Holdings and Investments. So it's like wonderful to welcome you here because I think we have the most diverse panel here, most interdisciplinary as well. And it's also the biggest panel. So I think we have extra 5 more minutes. It'll be exciting for us to unpack whether our image of Bhutan is right or not. So we heard some perceptions of Bhutan: happiness, spicy, peaceful. If I may start with you, Secretary Jigme, tell us about Bhutan. What is Bhutan really, and is our perception, our international perception, correct?
Yeah, I think for those who haven't heard about Bhutan, let me start with geography. Bhutan is a very small country. I think if you compare it to Japan, it's about around 1/10 the size. Our population is about 780,000, so I'm not going to do the math on that. I think we are located in South Asia, very cozily surrounded by 2 massive countries, China on the north, India in the south. In terms of population-wise, also significant differences there. I think Bhutan has a very unique development philosophy, which may be interesting for those that are not familiar. We've taken the road less traveled. We've looked at development as a goal for society beyond just the economic growth perspective. And by saying that, I don't really mean that growing a strong economy is not important, but rather that economics, strong economics itself is not the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal goes way beyond, right? And for us, gross national happiness, because ultimately happiness is the objective, the ultimate objective for society. And from that angle, I will make a comparison that happiness over wealth, balanced growth over indiscriminate growth, interconnectedness over individualism. I think these are basically principles that we aspire to achieve. Thanks.
And Aya, we went to Bhutan together for the first time in May 2024. That was with Mirai Sensei, Joey, Keiko, and also Keisuke Honda. I still remember when you drank the butter tea for the first time and you said, "Oh, this smells like popcorn."
Tastes like
Tastes like popcorn. And since then, you've been traveling a couple of times. You just got back from Bhutan as well. What has been your experience like in Bhutan, the first and now?
Yeah, I think I'm in charge of the antidisciplinary part in this group, probably. So I just actually happened to travel from Bhutan this time to Japan. But so when Joy first invited me to, hey, why don't you join this trip to Bhutan? My pure interest was actually before the technology part. I heard Bhutan was trying to grow, yet preserving philosophies. And then I thought, oh, that's interesting because that's exactly what we are trying to do at the Ethereum Foundation and also at Ethereum. We do believe in some values such as open source, decentralization, security, and recently also, like we actually we had this Ethereum Foundation retreat, and we did reintroduce or clarify that Vitalik Buterin and myself told to the entire organization that the growth is meaningless if we compromise values, and then that's a lot harder than just growing. And so I wanted to learn how a country can do that. And then when you fly to Bhutan in Drukgyal, like there's a booklet that shows King's opening speech. And then you kind of, it was very fascinating. On the way to get there, I was able to read the full speech, and then when I went there, I experienced that from the first experience that I went there 3 times now. Every time was this clarifying moment that I feel the alignment in the country, Bhutan, what they're trying to do, but also I can tell the people there can see that from what we are trying to do too. So it has become a bit of collaboration, still small, and that's very refreshing and also fascinating and exciting.
What has been the most refreshing part of the experience?
There are many things, but the last hackathon, I just came back, came from Bhutan, participating in the hackathon there, and was able to see actually the work. They're trying to build technology using decentralized technology, but also digitalization and innovation and combining all together, and then us being able to support that it's really, it's not just talking, it's in the way we do things, but also in the way they actually understand the principles. I feel like that Bhutan understands our principles better than any other places.
Let me get back to you on that, the hackathon as well. We'll be curious to hear more about the collaboration that's been happening. I do want to ask a question to Gal, who made a very interesting movement after graduating his PhD at MIT, and he decided to move to Thimphu. What's your experience like living there in Bhutan?
Yeah, so maybe to back up about how that decision came about. So as Daum mentioned, I did my PhD in, it was computational neuroscience. So I was studying models of attention, and I was kind of coming to a point where I had to decide what comes next for me. And the question I was supposed to ask myself was academia or industry. So academia would be continue to fight about details that took me years to understand why people would care about little modifications to models of attention. On the industry side, it would probably be trying to make an app more addictive. So I really was hoping that the answer to the academia or industry question would be neither, and I was trying to find another path. So Bhutan kind of came for me. I was just at the right place at the right time. Right place because I was at MIT and was introduced to Joey. Right time because Joey and Daum and the team had already established a foundation for the collaboration, but there was ambition to grow and deepen the relationship. And then also right time, I think, for Bhutan because GMC, Gelephu Mindfulness City, had just been announced, and we'll hear more about that in a second. And there was also in Bhutan ambition in the air for change and for growth, for balanced growth, as Jimmy mentioned. So although it's a small country, I feel like it's asking really big questions, not just for itself, but also for the world. So I was excited to be a part of that. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey. I moved 6 months ago, and I think it was the right thing to do.
What is your life like there in Thimphu?
Cozy. It's really nice. Yeah. I felt almost no friction integrating. I think cultural differences can sometimes create a little bit of inertia in trying to integrate, but it really wasn't the case in Bhutan. I felt immediately accepted, both by colleagues, also by just people on the street. There's a very kind of special warmth and presence that I felt. And yeah, so it's home now. So I'm happy that I made that move. Yeah.
So Bhutan has a population of 780,000 people, and like Al said, when I'm there, and if you meet somebody in Thimphu, everybody's somehow interconnected. So there's no need for you to build that initial trust because they're somehow connected to your trustworthy network already. So there's this immediate trust that's established. So you can interact with anybody as a friend right away. And I think that's really the beauty of Thimphu and Bhutan. But at the same time, I think what brings us together and how I got to know all of you individually is because of His Majesty's vision and passion in the Gelephu Mindfulness City project that has been announced in 2023, December at the National Day. And as Aya mentioned, there was a magazine that was available inside the Druk Air plane where you could read the whole speech. But I do want to ask our special envoy, Jonathan, you're serving as a special envoy and a chief international affairs officer for the Gelephu Mindfulness City. I mean, we're at a truly unprecedented, a small nation like Bhutan. We saw a map right behind that's entirely building a new special administrative region. So could you tell us about what GMC is and what we're aiming to achieve?
Thanks, Daum. Small is relative since I come from Singapore. And actually, Gelephu Mindfulness City is 5 times the size of Singapore, although we have 5 million people. So yeah, but small is beautiful, and Gelephu Mindfulness City is a vision of His Majesty to establish a special administrative region in a one country, two system concept. So basically, it's in Bhutan, but not Bhutan. Just imagine that it is a highly autonomous piece of territory where you can have a greenfield hand at play to develop a society, an economy, a project, a little mini city that is able to attract investments, attract the right type of practices that we would like to see in a dynamic city. So when His Majesty looked at global developments, geostrategic developments, challenges of Bhutan, he understood various pain points that were there in terms of how would one develop a country, how would one deal with geostrategic challenges around the world, instability, conflict. And the idea of Gelephu Mindfulness City really is to be able to create like a sandbox where we can establish the right frameworks that we would like to put in place to harmonize building a strong economy, advanced economy, together with responsible practices like sustainable development, caring for nature and society. And so what's really interesting and exciting about this project is that we have a very unique opportunity through His Majesty's vision. And in a way, it's very much a genius idea to be able to have this project where we can bring best practices around the world, adopt it, adapt it, as well, and to see how we can harmonize together with very important global practices that we're all looking at. How can we be more sustainable? How can we bring in technologies in a responsible way and harmonize it together with Bhutan's nature, Bhutan's practices, Bhutan's spiritual ethos? So we've coined a term for what we are going to do in Gelephu Mindfulness City. It's called mindful prosperity. Mindful prosperity. How can we be prosperous in a mindful way? What does that mean? You cannot just imagine creating something of a utopia. It needs to be prosperous. It needs to have certain building blocks. So how do we put all this together into GMC is really the challenge that we are taking up. So in a nutshell, we've not tried to reinvent the wheel where we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We have adopted best practices around the world. For example, we've adopted Singapore common law in our territory to facilitate business engagements. We've adopted Abu Dhabi global market regulations for financial institutions. And we are certainly open to develop world-class sustainable policies that can then come together with the economic policies that we put in place. So that really summarizes how Gelephu Mindfulness City is hoping to fulfill His Majesty's vision of one country, two systems, where Gelephu Mindfulness City is able to leapfrog ahead by putting in place advanced economic practices and to see how we can harmonize it together with nature, with sustainable practices.
Might be helpful if you can share a little bit more about where and what Gelephu is and why is it geographically important. Can we go back to the second map slide? The one before, yes.
I think location is only important if the purpose is right. If we were to look back to Singapore's history, we were just a village, an island village, before somebody thought that, hey, maybe it could be a strategic port. And then from there, with that idea, Singapore attracted the type of investors and companies and countries to a very small location. So in the same sense, while Gelephu Mindfulness City is adjacent to India, which is a very important market to many countries, it's a question of purpose. How would the purpose of the location make it useful and strategic? How would it add value to countries that are interested to engage with the neighborhood, for example, India? So if you were to picture this, a small administrative region that's highly autonomous, nimble, able to adopt best practices at the border of India, you could facilitate businesses entering the Indian market through Gelephu Mindfulness City, and through that also the wider South Asia region, and from there to other parts of the world. So really the question is not so much whether it's Bhutan or Gelephu Mindfulness City a strategic location, is it a gateway, is it a hub? I think really it's a question of what's fit for purpose, what is the vision that we're going after, and how we're able to construct that in order to make that the location relevant and add value.
Yeah. No, that's very important, and I think it also ties well with the kind of the mindset that we want to put into our entrepreneurs. So Ujjwal is the CEO of Druk Holdings, and Druk Holdings actually represent 25 to 30% of Bhutan's nationwide GDP. And how is the entrepreneurship ecosystem like right now, and how does GMC fit into kind of Bhutan's broader economic strategy?
Many of the variables, thanks Daum, many of the variables that you described about Bhutan is true, including the spicy. But you can sense, we can sense something is changing in Bhutan. And I think this is a sustainable development change that's happening with the vision of His Majesty. As much as we have developed the first decentralized identity using blockchain, which of course Aya will talk about later and Jigme will talk about later, I think, and then the vision of Gelephu Mindfulness City. So something is changing in Bhutan. Daum, you asked about entrepreneurial ecosystem, it asked about economy. If you look at Bhutan, I think apart from the core values of Bhutan rooted in gross national happiness, environmental leadership that Bhutan has shown, being 70% forest cover and committed to remain 60% forest cover through the constitution at any point in time, the GMC evolves to build on these values and build a sustainable, thriving economy around. Traditionally, if you look at Bhutan, agriculture, tourism, hydropower is what comes to our mind for a large economy. And hydropower, what Daum talks about, 25-30% of GDP through a state-owned enterprise like Druk Holding Investments, 70% of the 25% of GDP comes from hydropower. So we are highly rooted in one industry, and an opportunity with GMC is to diversify that with being nimble, learning to engage with the world, providing the investors with the best systems, like adopting the common law from Singapore, adopting the market laws of Abu Dhabi, and not trying to reinvent these, but bring the best from the world, bring the best people from the world into GMC, train Bhutanese, and build the next sustainable, thriving economy rooted in GNH, rooted in the values of environmental conservation, which is so important for development, a mindful prosperity. And as we do this, I think this is where as we learn to engage with the world, to build an economy through GMC, to build entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial mindset in the minds of Bhutanese, to bring the best entrepreneurs from around the world, GMC provides that opportunity because it's a blank canvas. We can come together, develop policies, develop regulations, develop technology, test it within GMC, test it in Bhutan, and take it global. And that's the entrepreneurial ecosystem that we are trying to build. And from DHI side, as we integrate with GMC, with the experience of DHI understanding the Bhutanese ecosystem, with a small experience of interacting globally through DHI, and with a large experience that GMC will bring, we will be working together to ensure that all of us, I would want to see many of us in Bhutan, talking about the next generation technology that we can practice, build, test, and scale through GMC.
Ujjwal, I want to ask this question and also to the rest of the panelists. As we're kind of imagining the city and the purpose behind this Gelephu Mindfulness City, it's been about 1.5 years that we've been picturing and some of the construction has started. I'm curious to know what keeps you up at night thinking about this project?
Yeah, how do we ensure we build a vibrant, thriving, sustainable economy, but at the same time that resonates with the younger generation who is going to be the driving force of GMC eventually, right? And one of the main reasons to have GMC is also to ensure that we provide the opportunity for the next generation of Bhutanese, but also the next generation and youth from around the region and the world, where we can think freely, non-interdisciplinary, and really look at the spaces between the dots, Daum, that you were talking about, and try to build that. So how do we ensure that we build a system, we build a city which is mindful, which is sustainable, which is thriving, but that also resonates with the next generation to contribute?
Does anybody want to answer that question?
For me, it would be how do we break out of certain stereotypes that have been present given geostrategic constraints in terms of, oh, Bhutan is between two big neighbors. You've got China in the north, you've got India in the south. How do you look at this opportunity to add value to your neighbors? How do you not be overly dependent on big neighbors? So I think that's one of my worries. That's one of the things that I always ponder about, especially working together with our friends in India. How can we add value? How can we be small but yet a game changer for India? In a way, having served in the Singapore government for many years, when we speak with our friends in India, we always ask ourselves, how can we add value to a big country like India? So likewise, how can GMC add value to big countries like India and the neighborhood? And to be persuasive about it and to find a way to have that common ground. So we do need to bring in a different way of thinking to conceptualize our conversations so that we can find not just common ground, but a win-win solution.
So for me, it's Bhutan has always lived, with this philosophy of GNH, and
Maybe we should unpack what GNH is for the audience.
Okay. So gross national happiness is a different development philosophy where we look at, of course, sustainable economic development. We look at preserving and developing, our culture. We look at maintaining the environment, and then, of course, strengthening good governance. So this is a different development paradigm, and I think Bhutan has, to be very honest, struggled with it. I mean, we have a very small economy. I think 20, 25%, 30% dependent on hydro. These are inherent advantages that we have. I think what keeps me up at night is how do we actually develop a city based on these values? And it's fascinating for me to be attending an event like this, that is antidisciplinary in nature, where we have so many people thinking about a different approach to the status quo. And it actually gives me a lot of positivity. And because when we look at GMC, we are not limiting it just to the intelligence and capability of the Bhutanese population. This is an invitation to people all over the world that believe that such an approach is necessary, and I think if we can get enough bright minds together, there's definitely a better world that we can leave for our future generations.
And interestingly, in the audience, we have a group of researchers, Japanese government people, and also from entrepreneurship as well. And I think many people can be curious to know why we're having this panel at this Symposium of Design and Science. So Chiba Tech, our university, and the Henkaku Center has become a kind of a hub for Bhutan and Japan relations since 2023, when we first visited Bhutan with the chairman and the president for the National Day. And since then, we have signed 3 MOUs with DHI, GovTech, and GMC, of course. And I think, Gal, you're now our Bhutan liaison, and we just opened an office in Thimphu as well. Can you tell us about the ongoing projects that are happening between Bhutan and Chiba Tech?
Yeah, happy to give a little tour. We also have an exhibition here that gives a bit of more detail on each of those. But yeah, when I joined the Henkaku Center team, there was, as I was mentioning already, a foundation being built, a lot of ambition to collaborate, which we've converted in the previous year and a half. Just to highlight a few things, so some of the collaborations are at the level of academic exchange. So we recently launched an academic exchange program where we have every year 3 Bhutanese students coming to do their masters at Chiba Tech. I think we have them here in the audience somewhere. You'll see them around, yeah, there in the back. These guys are our first cohorts doing their masters at Chiba Tech. Actually working on research projects that I think are quite related both to their backgrounds in Bhutan and also to the problems that Bhutan is facing. So I think Kinley and Sharab are working on AI in agriculture. Tinley is working on smart water management systems. So quite practical areas of focus that I hope they'll bring back to Bhutan. So that's the academic research collaboration. We also have a joint satellite project where we're developing part of a satellite, the payload in Bhutan, and then that payload will be integrated and launched from the Chiba Tech side. And we also have physical movement of people. So we had Washio-san, who I think is also here. We had him try the spicy food in Bhutan and stay with us for a little bit. And we also have Bhutanese students come visit Chiba Tech shortly. So that's the satellite collaboration that we're doing. And then, yeah, as Daum mentioned, we are kind of trying to build an umbrella for all these projects under Chiba Tech office, which we call Dabtong House. Dabtong is 1,000 petals in Dzongkha, the Bhutanese national language, kind of analogous, echoing Chiba, which is 1,000 leaves in Japanese. Yeah, so we are really hoping for Dabtong House to become integrated umbrella for Chiba Tech and Bhutan collaboration, both as a community space. So once these guys come back to Bhutan, we can have a little alumni community in Thimphu, and then also just as a workspace for the satellite students to be able to do technical work. Yeah, so those are the existing collaborations. And then we also recently just announced, just launched a Voxel project. This is a collaboration, 3-way collaboration, also with MIT. Voxels are these modular building blocks that you can assemble and reconfigure. So it's kind of a robotic construction method. It's a kind of response to 3D printing of buildings, which although it's flexible, it's irreversible. So Voxels is another project we're launching. It will be quite a big thing together with DHI, Chiba Tech, and MIT. So a lot of fun and interesting educational and research collaborations.
Ujjwal and Jimmy, you visited Chiba Tech in Tsudanuma 3 days ago, and you spent about 5 days in Japan. What does this kind of collaboration between Japan and Bhutan mean for DHI and GovTech?
It's important. We have 3 students sitting at the back, and they have been here for last 6-7 months now, almost. And we visited their labs, we visited their work, we discussed with them, and these are the seeds of collaboration, the fruition of the collaboration that's happening. It influences their colleagues back home. It gives them inspiration of what's happening. Collaboration on space, as Gal mentioned, between GovTech and Chiba Tech. On Voxel now with DHI and MIT and Chiba Tech. We also visited the FURO, Future Robotics. Amazing robots being designed without sensors. And this is an interesting area for us to look at the collaboration. But again, I do want to bring in the science and design and anti-interdisciplinary being actually really interesting concept for what we look at GMC, because building a city requires really not having any biases to any one particular areas of expertise. You really need to be creative in terms of bringing together policies to technologies, and within technology, whether it's energy systems to your transportation, to smart cities, to anything else. And how can you be removing your hat of expertise to really be interdisciplinary, to build a city that is that is mindful, that is thriving economically? I think as we move together, I think there will be much more deeper and meaningful collaboration between science and design and GMC in the future. That's how I see it.
I'll just add that we are undertaking an ambitious project. I mean, a city that has of this nature has never been done, and we need capable people, you know, from all walks of life, and this relationship that we are building with Chiba Tech is essential in building the capacities, you know, that we need on the ground, trying to do something that has never been done. And I think another important role that our colleagues will be playing is, you know, taking on also the ambassador role, right? I think building relationships, finding people with common values that may be interested, you know, in this ambitious goal that we have in GMC. So just wanted to add that.
I do want to shift to the bigger question that these discussion raise, is that at our Graduate School of Design and Science, we have this 9 principles, and out of 2 of that, we have this principle of compasses over maps and learning over education. So, I mean, the world with all these complex issues that are happening around the society, we are guiding the students, and we're hoping to guide the students towards more orientation, more than instructions. And I think, in fact, Ethereum Foundation has been really working on following the true ethos of Ethereum, which is to build true resilience. And I think you've mentioned that Ethereum is more about building, not building machines, but it's like a garden, and thus the infinite garden. How has it been like in your practice, Aya, in trying to pursue the vision of infinite garden in practice in this crypto world?
Yeah, well, just to probably explain what infinite, I've been describing Ethereum's ecosystem. The vision of Ethereum ecosystem is infinite garden, and then I don't know how many of you, if you're familiar with infinite games, the meaning is the game that's played by played to continue the game together, not for one of us to win. And then there's a beautiful book by James Carr's Finite and Infinite Games, if you haven't read it. So I see the work we've been doing together as, and that's why we're trying to like not to control, like we meaning as the Ethereum Foundation, this has to be really collaboration with everyone, not just the expertise in the Web3 space. And then one of the important things is just that we think long term. We think in long term. In Christine's beautiful presentation, she also mentioned this, the history, past, when the past is deep and big and then future is big. I can see that in Bhutan too. And they understand the meaning, thinking in generations, thinking with the future of generation, and also that depth comes from how they've been thinking in the past. And this is very hard to implement in the space with like Web3, when everything is very quick, things kept added all the time. So we do need to have some discipline in this very high-speed innovation. And that's why I'm seeing Bhutan and GMC as some potentially going to be a big inspiration for not just for our space, but for how the world is trying to innovate and bring new technologies. And I know, like Jigme mentioned, like Bhutan is still like struggling, but for us, for the rest of the world, or for most of the world, we've seen the failures that it might have succeeded in growing, but it has failed to grow right. And so it's all actually connected, and then intuitively I felt so when I first went to Bhutan, but I've been feeling more strongly that I want to show to our world or to our ecosystem and also the rest of the world, you can actually grow in a different way, and I need help from Bhutan. So they think we're helping, but I'm actually getting help from them. Yeah.
Did you experience that when you were in Bhutan recently for the hackathon?
Yes. So the hackathon is one way to, Ujjwal, you mentioned like how do we involve next generations and the younger people. It shouldn't be us just going there and then build for them. Like, they need to learn how to build, and they need to actually be the one to come up with the ideas, what to build. So in Ethereum, we often actually let people learn, but also come up with creative ideas with collaboration and also learning from each other. And a hackathon is not just about one way from teacher to students. And I think Bhutan has just experienced that through this, supposed to be the first international hackathon. And so we just mentioned this decentralized ID. Just to add to that is the world, almost all countries are trying to at least digitalize their ID. Such as Japan has now my number. I don't know if you can call it as fully digitalized. But what Bhutan is trying to do is trying to have that, but digital ID to be decentralized. What that means is it's not, that system is not going to rely on one place, government. And that was the vision the king has. And I was fascinated by that. I don't really, honestly, I've never seen that leadership anywhere. And that is like, for the citizen of Bhutan, he wanted their identification to be decentralized. If something happens to government, they don't lose their identity. So I'm actually betting on this, like, okay, if they finish this, it's not fully decentralized yet from our definition, because we're pretty stubborn about this, but about to get there. And so that's the ID layer, and the hackathon was about hackers to build application solutions with utilizing this ID, such as land registry solution, or there was one that verifying authenticity of like local products, or those are the ideas. Oh, actually, one of them that got applied, which was by an international team, was actually copying Anno-san, Milaito's Anno-san's ideas to using AI to the solution for the government to really listen and involve citizens' voice. And they said actually that we're not just incorporating technology, but also learning from Web3 splits of collaboration. So anyway, so there is a lot of like learning from each other moment, and then we identify very strong local developers. And I wasn't able to do that in the previous trips because I was mainly in this formal meetings. So it was very fun to interact with local developers.
We actually had an audience in the front who was like shaking his head when you said about the my number, that it not being decentralized. So maybe that's something that Japan can also learn from Bhutan. I want to ask Jonathan, you've mentioned mindful prosperity. How is GMC making a decision on deciding what to keep, what kind of Bhutanese and Buddhist value that they want to maintain, while also pursuing economic growth at the same time?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Certainly, there will be fundamental values of that Bhutan subscribes to that will be part of this entire concept. But what is more important really is how do we harmonize them? How do we bring in best practices in the world and find a way to blend into the long history and culture of Bhutan? It's easy to say, oh, we need to be mindful, we need to have a spiritual approach. What does that mean? I think a lot of it depends on the type of respect that we are going to put into this project, into how we deal with culture, how we deal with societal norms, how do we deal with the environment, and how do we blend it and harmonize it with economic gains. You cannot just be happy or nothing. So while it's important to pursue happiness, you do need certain aspects that drive it. You need investments, you need to grow an economy, you need to have an ecosystem that allows people to live in Gelephu, that allows talent to come to Gelephu. So it's going to be an evolving narrative, because when you are starting something as ambitious as this project, it's not just building a city. Many countries have built cities, but we are building a city with a difference, building a city that from get-go, we are very cognizant of the fact that to fulfill His Majesty's vision, we need to be able to balance all these contradicting ideas and to bring a harmony to it. So, in practical sense, how are we going to do it? Well, certain building blocks will have to be there. Certain spiritual aspects will have to be there. Then there will be a lot of blank spaces that are going to be available, where we can bring in new ideas, technologies, concepts that then help enrich this concept of Gelephu Mindfulness City. So it's going to be an evolving story. It's not easy to say, oh, you've got to go A, B, C. So in a way, it's very dynamic. But having said that, it will take funding, it will take investments, so you cannot escape that. But what I would say is that His Majesty has a very clear idea that he does not want certain types of industries. He does not want certain kinds of, let's say, pollutive elements or things that renewable energy, will be able to support. So in that sense, we are looking to the future. We're trying to project and to see what is the outcome that we would like to have and how are we able to build from at this stage.
Ujjwal, you're nodding. What's your take on that?
I think probably when Jonathan talked about renewable energy, that's the time I nodded and you spotted that. Because as I mentioned, Bhutan's economy is on hydropower, but we really need to diversify beyond hydropower. And probably, Daum, that's where, every action has equal and opposite reaction is science, and then putting a rocket into the moon is the technology. And I really resonate with design and science and design, because probably the design part is what was missing. Being very explicit about the creativity, the design part in the science and technology is important for innovation to happen. So for Bhutan to diversify beyond hydro, we really just not talk about science and technology, but we really need an innovative design mind. And I see this because it's not easy to come out of a cycle, and if that cycle has a huge momentum because we have done so well in hydro, how do you come out of that to really diversify energy base? And I put energy as a story here because for development to happen, for GMC to grow, or for any economy to grow, energy becomes so important. There's so much of potential in Bhutan beyond hydropower. And probably, Jonathan, as you rightly mentioned, eventually we do need investments, we do need infrastructure to be built. So, that's the point I was nodding, in a sense that how can we now look at an hydrogen economy in Bhutan through GMC? Because we can be very innovative in policy in GMC, be very nimble. And hydrogen, and Japan is one of the best places to talk about hydrogen because it's very advanced and things. So we have been trying to see how we can collaborate on hydrogen. Even exploring natural hydrogen is something that we are really looking at. So that's why beyond design, beyond technology and economics and science, we really need creative thinking to see how can we explore natural hydrogen. And there seems to be potential looking at geography, looking at some of the initial indications. So there's a lot of space between the dots to really build the base of the economy, leveraging GMC. And I really feel that energy is one area that we can leapfrog. And we look forward to creative ideas in terms of really diversifying energy because that is the fundamental to economic growth and prosperity in the long run. That's the reason I was nodding.
Actually, that's, I think, exactly what we're trying to do at the Graduate School of Design and Science. Chiba Tech itself is an engineering school, but because it's design and science, we're having the engineering students to take principles of awareness class, where they have to meditate for 25 minutes every week. We're not trying to design a discipline, but we're thinking about what would be the kind of the outcome and the compass that we can offer to students through these kind of education. So it would be pretty experimental in SDS as well, but I think in many ways it's similar to what GMC and Bhutan is trying to do. I do have questions from the audience, if we can pull that out. Okay, I think we can take the second question. Can we scroll up? To what extent is there ambition to scale the Bhutanese approach to mindful prosperity to the rest of the world? Does any of you want to take that question?
I have that ambition for sure. I think that when we talk about kind of bridging Bhutanese values with innovation and growth, I think maybe the image that some people might get is that the Bhutanese aspect will be the historical, traditional aspect, and the innovation and growth will be about looking to the world. But I actually don't really see it that way. I think that we will have the Bhutanese values and tradition embedded in what we do. But I think Bhutan also has a lot to offer in approaching problems that the world actually doesn't yet have solutions to. So there are certain aspects where we can rely on best practices. We know what makes certain tax environments more attractive, or how to manage an attractive business environment. But there are problems that I think we all don't really know how to solve. How do we create a financial system that leapfrogs over traditional finance, which has a tendency to disadvantage small players? How do we create growth in a way that's considerate and of externalities that growth creates? So I think that is the Bhutanese element is as much in the tradition and history as it is in the forward-looking aspect of mindful prosperity.
I think one thing that I want to touch on is that this kind of city hasn't been developed, and I think it's the if I dare say the ultimate antidisciplinary approach to establishing a society, because the risk is immense. Developing a city when all cities have been built in a particular way. I mean, just imagine that, right? I mean, the risk is enormous. And I think what we are trying to do in GMC is potentially a bright spot. It's an opportunity to showcase how we can rethink how societies are developed, on a city scale, and by successfully delivering this bright spot, it showcases to everyone that yes, there's a different approach to doing this, and a different approach that actually results in a net positive, not only for the now in terms of the economic benefits that you get, but also for all future residents and the planet as a whole. So my belief is the success of GMC will drive future cities that will be built along these lines.
Maybe I just want to weigh in on some of the other questions here to clear up some potential misconceptions. GMC works on a one country, two systems approach. So some questions here talk about, how do you preserve certain cultural aspects, etc. Bhutan remains Bhutan. GMC is created in a way like a sandbox where it can bring in new ideas, it can leapfrog, it can adopt best practices and move as rapidly as possible. It's a 40-year vision by His Majesty. He calls it a diamond strategy, where for 20 years, Bhutan and GMC diverge. In a sense, diverge meaning GMC is able to leapfrog and bring in new ideas, new talent, change the paradigm, change the conversation. And hopefully after 20 years, with a level of success and governance and structure, systems in place, prosperity on the way, on the road to prosperity, the rest of Bhutan will be able to then merge into what GMC is doing. So please don't misunderstand. We're not talking, sometimes we talk about Bhutan and we get both mixed up. Bhutan will preserve itself while reforming at its pace under the current government. GMC, on the other hand, will be able to draw in as much as liberally as possible or as quick as a pace that we are able to absorb. So we welcome ideas, we welcome talent, we welcome institutions that want to come into GMC to test their ideas in the way that GMC would be able to be mindfully prosperous. So that is something I wanted to quickly share with all of you before time runs out. Otherwise, this conversation will get a little bit confused. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 minutes left. I do want to wrap up. In the beginning, when we asked the question of what's your image of Bhutan, we heard temples, peace, happiness, spiciness. I want to ask each one of you, starting from Jimmy, what do you want people to think about when it comes to Bhutan? What does Bhutan have to offer to the world?
Did you say one word?
It doesn't have to be.
I don't know, pioneering?
Okay.
It would be inspiration for sure when they make for example, this decentralized ID to be fully decentralized. They're going to be ahead of everyone, including Singapore, way ahead of Japan. It's going to happen pretty soon. And then that's how we actually spread this wisdom of growing mindfully.
A sense of imagination, a sense of imagination.
It doesn't have to be one word, by the way.
I would say that the ability to be bold, protected by the sandbox that we're creating, being bold and imaginative about possible solutions to problems that are not yet solved.
Preserving all the variables that were talked about, I think innovative and a magnet to capture the best minds from around the world to have the next generation conversation. I think that's something we look forward to.
Thank you very much.